We're just gonna project.
We're just going to project.
Oh, we can project. Can everyone hear me in the back row?
All right, so Mindy, you know, they say write what you know, and how were you able to take all of your experiences of working in late night, working in a writer's room, and just your experience breaking through and putting it into just one, 96-minute movie?
Well, it was really fun because I had been writing on The Office. I worked on that show for 8 years. And I worked on my show for 6 years, did 117 episodes of that. So, and both of those shows were so funny, and they're both workplace shows, but there was so much that I hadn't been able to explore about my personal experience and coming up in the business. And I really wanted to write about that. And I also really wanted to write this character for Emma Thompson, like very specific, and I've been thinking about it for years and years. So when I thought of her as this kind of character in this world, I was like, oh, this is great. There's a place for both of our characters to live. And it was really a joy to work on. It took me a really long time to write it, but it was so fun.
I think, Paul, when you read a screenplay like this, that it's ultimately just a funny, uplifting, inspiring film, but it also has a lot to say, and it's also about just sort of the changing landscape of the business and how everything changes so quickly. What were your first impressions when you read this amazing screenplay?
Mindy showed it to me when we were like season 5 of the Mindy Project, and I was so happy for my friend, but also very jealous. It's so good. And a lot of times, when you look at a movie, at least when I look at a movie, I think like if it's a comedy, like am I laughing right during it? And also like, can you visualize it like being made? A lot of movies you read like, I don't see how this gets made. But this, like, it was the clearest path. You're like, oh my God, this makes perfect sense. And then she's like, yeah, I want to make this movie with Emma Thompson. And I was like, that's awesome. I'm gonna go play basketball with Michael Jordan. It's so nice to want things. Yeah, but I mean, just a testament to her that it just, I think other people read it, and Emma Thompson read it and was like, yeah, no, let's do this. And, like, I feel like a year or so after you showed it to me, we were in Brooklyn together, hanging out with John Lithgow.
When I got the script, I just remember thinking, this is great, that was too loud. What I liked about the screenplay in specific to your answer, Scott, is that there were characters that were all memorable. I was casting them in my head while I'm reading it, like, oh, this is great, that's great, this could be so-and-so. And it had kind of the fun, like, Sorkin-y vibe of, like, there are little jokes that are just, like, there for whoever catches it. It's not like everything was so bombastic and poised. It was just, like, this living, breathing workplace environment, which she was able to capture really honestly.
When the first time I saw the film, I was really taken by just how effortlessly the movie talks about, like, ageism, womanhood, diversity in the workplace, and how important was it for you to bring all of these things, let alone one of them, into one really tight screenplay like this?
Well, all the issues you're talking about are incredibly interesting to me because I'm affected by them personally. But, and we've talked about this too, I really wanted to write a movie that was funny and really relatable to everyone. So often when you're a writer or a woman of color, there's this idea that you have like you want to be speaking to one niche audience. And it's not like I don't think that niche is important. They're incredibly close to my heart, young women of color, and telling that story. But I really wanted this to be as broadly appealing as a Mike Nichols movie, as a Working Girl, as a James L. Brooks movie, but just have characters that don't get to play the lead. And I think audiences are really smart, and audiences want to see things, different perspectives on things. We just don't always give it to them. And I just thought this was an easy thing to do. And like, who was going to argue that Emma Thompson was not so funny and sexy? It's just to write something entertaining that you can take your whole family to go see. Maybe maybe not little.
No, five.
Yeah, there's a lot of swearing.
We swear around my kids.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I don't know if you've met his kids, but like little Don Rickles.
You take an actress and screenwriter like Emma Thompson. She is an Academy Award for screenplay, Sense and Sensibility. Academy Award as an actress for Howard's End. And you're right. She really does easily go from being sort of an out there a comedian in the film to being dramatic and poignant and heartfelt like that.
Yeah.
So how impressed, like what were the things that impressed you the most about watching her in action?
Her sort of indefatigable spirit. Mindy talked about this, how like there's a thing called coverage. So like when they shoot a scene, there's 5 actors. They have to get shots of every actor saying their lines, reacting. So the times where the camera wasn't even on Emma and it was on one of us, Emma would still be giving like 110% performance as if the camera were on her. And that was really, really nice to see someone who cared that much about her fellow actors, that she was like, every time it was like the Super Bowl, not a screaming kid.
Oh, that's so
She also, like, despite, like, you have this image of her as, like, some period piece actor. She couldn't be nicer and more approachable. Remember we were playing, you guys know the game Heads Up? So it's like a little guessing game. It's an app on your phone, and, like, it's basically charades. Like, you can't see it, but if I'm holding up right here and it says, like, Will Ferrell, you would...
Elf! Zoolander!
Yeah. So we all started playing it one night, and every time I was like, I want to play this game.
It's like 2 o'clock in the morning.
It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and
It's like 8 actors crammed into a tiny room.
yeah. And at one point, her name came up. And we're like, it's you. She goes, what do you mean? What? It's you.
Not Helen Mirren.
Not
Helen
Mirren. No. There's no beef. Okay, I get it now. But, yeah, she's I came home, I told my wife, I go, Emma Thompson's everything you hope she is and more.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this movie was one of a bunch that I did see at Sundance, and I was immediately struck by just how polished it was, like how it felt like a big budget studio film, but also just how effortlessly it was. It just was so uplifting. The movie is over and you felt good. So what made Nisha Janatra just the perfect person to capture all of that?
Well, I want to say, first of all, thank you for saying that, and also, it's hard to find independent film that is uplifting sometimes. Because it is the place where, because of the smaller budgets, people can take risks and often tell personal stories that are sad and demoralizing and shine a light on injustice, which is one of the great things about independent film. But the thing about this movie was that we wanted it to be like a wish fulfillment movie that made people excited about moving to New York City, and we wanted it to have serious sections that you. Is this? Oh yeah, great. Thank you. I was just saying that we wanted to do something a little different, which is we wanted a movie like Working Girl, like Broadcast News, like All the President's Men, that made you want to work at that place and move to Washington, D.C., move to New York City, and we wanted it to look beautiful, but we didn't have a ton of money. I mean, we shot this movie in 25 days. Wow. So probably like a third of what you'd get for one of those bigger budget movies. But to talk about Nisha, who was obviously so integral to being able to do all that, Nisha was someone who comes from an independent film. She's not scared of a 14 to 16 hour day. And we knew her from working with her on the Mindy Project. And she is a real actor's director. She very thoughtful and wants, your performance is sort of paramount for her.
There is a tremendous amount of comedic talent who have gotten their chops on stand-up. So taking your screenplay, how much was everyone encouraged to improvise and just sort of like go off the cuff and go beyond what was written?
I improvised everything. Mindy didn't write any of it. I did it on the fly, spur of the moment. My program like that, it's weird, I know.
No, I actually, I didn't improvise a whole lot, only because I kind of came in for a day and then would go away and then come back a couple weeks later. But when you're doing a show like the Mindy Project, where you're going to do 117 episodes, and a lot of times it's just like the two of us in a scene together, like, improvising feels just like natural and fun, and it's just a good way for us to kind of find new things that the people in the writer's room didn't think of. And I do that with most movies I go into, but for this movie I was very kind of trepidatious to improvise a whole lot, only because, this really sounds like I'm blowing smoke, but like, this script, when I read it, it was like a fine wine, you know what I mean? Or it was like just a perfect meal, and I didn't want to like come in and be like, you know, this needs more potatoes, you know. So I just was very kind of trepidatious. And there were moments where you guys were like, you should improvise a little bit, but this was like one of the few times where I was like, I'm just gonna kind of stick to the script a little bit here because it's all there. And
Another metaphor to talk about how
it's like a finely tuned Italian sports car. You know, I love cars. It's my true passion.
That's so nice of you to say. I will say one of the funniest lines in the movie, I think, is Paul improvised, which is when Emma goes around and it's the first time they've met all the writers, and John Early, who's so hilarious, also says, you know, I just want to introduce I'm a huge fan, and then Paul improvised, yes, Ms. Newberry, when my parents were getting a divorce, and you know exactly where that's going, right? Which is here, I'll let you talk about it, but it was so funny.
No, well, for the record, similar to Ike, like I actually improvise more when I do drama than when I do comedy, because comedy, it is all, the funny's already there. But there were little moments for sure, like where I knew Emma was supposed to cut me off, and we did 4 takes. So once I got the 2 scripted, I was like, I'm just gonna look like I'm about to pile on and talk about my parents' divorce. So there were little things like that, but no, for sure, it's comforting when it is funny enough. What sucks is when you get on a movie that isn't that funny, and everybody's like, isn't it a riot? And then you're looking at your friends like, we're gonna have to add some stuff. This was just one of those movies you didn't have to add it. It was just like, it was totally there.
When I met Emma Thompson, I apologize, I told you this already. I said to her, I go, Emma, I love you. I remember when I was 11, I saw Henry V in the Fine Arts Theater in Chicago. She goes, how old were you? And I said 11. She goes, fuck off.
One of the nice things about Emma is she's so, like, most of the roles she's in, she's wearing a corset, right? So she's in these period movies, and then I found this very delightful. She would only wear different versions of Carhartt overalls. That was all she would wear, and sneakers, never heels. And she's just one of the most, and she rented an apartment in the East Village and just instantly became the coolest person. She's so unpretentious. She's literally a dame, but she was just such a cool, like, she's acting like an NYU grad student. She's like walking around. It was so fun to work with someone who was so different than how you would think they would be.
Oh, totally. So there's a scene, the scene near the beginning of the film when Molly first gets the job and she's sitting in the reception and she's like, oh, I'm so excited. Molly is she's so positive. She's so idealistic and sweet, like she's infectious, you know, and it's like infectiously endearing. Like, what was your moment, each of you, when you had that like real breakthrough moment where you were like, oh my God, I'm so excited?
So what was the moment for me in my life? Well, I was going to say that it's nice that you bring up the Molly character, because it was such an acting challenge to play this character, because I normally play like sociopaths and delusional women who take crazy steps. So to play someone grounded and normal who you might know that you're rooting for, you just feel conflicted about rooting for. You know, she was just, that was really challenging. So my moment of where in my life personally where I felt that way was when I was hired to write on The Office, and it was only for 6 episodes for that first season, but I was inexperienced enough to know that I didn't know that was not necessarily a good thing to get hired to be on a show that has only a 6 episode order. And I was sitting in my car, which was a rent-a-wreck, and I was staying in a sublet in Miracle Mile, and I remember I got a call from my agent saying that I was hired, and I pulled over in front of Canner's, which is like the loading area. I pulled over in the loading area there and just cried, and then I called my mom. So for me, and to
that experience, and I didn't even know that The Office was going to become what it was, but I just thought Greg was so special, the original Office was so special, and that Steve Carell was amazing. So that was my moment.
What was yours, Ike?
Geez. I mean, I really think back to when we first started doing Mindy. You know, I got hired as a writer on that show, and for years I would try to be on a TV show, and like casting director was like, no, your teeth are too strange or whatever. And I remember like, it's because you have to go through like a testing process, if you want to be on a TV show, you have to go to the casting director, then the studio, and then the network, and I never would make it onto the air. And I remember like, Mindy hired me and my partner Dave as a writing team, and she was like, I think you should be on the show. And I thought I would be like a one-line episode, like a perverted janitor or something. And I remember the day that Mindy and our head writer Matt Warburton came in and they showed me these sides for this character Morgan. And I remember right away being like, oh my God, this character's so, you killed to play this part. Like, in Hollywood, you work so hard to be on a bad show and to get on a good show where they've written a part for you. And Mindy and Matt, God bless them, didn't make me audition for it. They're like, no, we're just going to kind of cram you down the network's throat. And I think that moment where I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be on a TV show and writing it. And 117 episodes later, we were here at Landmark. Yeah, I'll say that.
I think we all have moments of like thinking back to, you're giving me this look, like what the hell is he gonna say? We all have these moments where like, even when we got a couple like lines on a co-star role in a sitcom, it did feel really great though, right? It was still monumental even with that. So for me, that moment happened way earlier, probably when someone said, hey, how you doing? Let alone got a job. But I would say the job that freaked me out was auditioning for Spike Lee for BlacKkKlansman, because for me it was just like, holy crap, I get to meet Spike Lee. It doesn't matter if I get the part, this is amazing, holy crap. And then I went in and improvised a lot, knowing Spike was the writer, and kind of took a chance. And I was playing a Klansman, so the improv wasn't real friendly. And I just kind of was trying to live in that space and give him what I thought maybe he wanted, but also what I, as an artistic person, wanted. And he wrote my cell number down in the audition. That was a moment, he was like, man, give me your number. Wrote it down, he's like, come here. And gave me like a bro hug as I left the audition. That was a moment of like, I feel like somebody got me. Like somebody got whatever it is I do and said, yeah, I want your thing that you do to be in my thing that I'm doing. And it does feel, and you can all attest, like it feels good to feel got in any capacity. It feels good when somebody looks at you and goes, yeah, man.
So I just love how this movie, and we could talk about this the whole time, how the movie does look at like how there are diversity hires and the workplace has been due for a change for a long time, and it's been happening. It's still obviously a long way to go, but what are some of the observations that you've seen behind the scenes in the last couple of years?
Well, I think that there has been enormous change since even 2 years ago, and certainly from when I first started out in 2004. And the reason is, frankly, that people are now very vigilant because they're worried about being publicly shamed. So, which all this is helpful. But what was nice about making this movie was there's a scene, and I can't really claim credit for it because I just wrote an action line at the very end of the movie where we see what the writer's room looks like a year later. Yeah. And how I get chills when I watch it. I had nothing to do with that, and that was really Nisha, the way that she filmed it, and the way that she cast the other writers. But I was moved by that because it was like, yeah, it can be that easy to have a room that has an active mix and an accurate representation of who is in the world in your workplace. But I've been really heartened by it, and I also feel it's my responsibility to help change. So I have 2 shows, and there's more than gender parity on both of them, and there's a very big representation of minorities in both, and actually the material for both of them is very inclusive.
I agree, we still have a pretty far way to go, but I think just this movie existing the way it is, if this was 10 years ago, this movie would be starring like Ashton Kutcher and Robert De Niro. It would be like directed by Michael Bay. Like it would be a very different movie. Still a good movie, would love to see that movie. I think I am so encouraged, when I go and I show up to do an episode of The Twilight Zone, and I meet this amazing woman named Christina Cho, who's the director, and so you do see, you do feel like the tide is turning, and we need it to turn a little faster, I think still, but I think just the existence of this movie shows that we have come up quite a bit. I say that as a white man. But yeah. Just called me a piece of shit.
Hey, I got a thing against white guys. Maybe look at Scott right now.
But no, I think I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. I think that the fact that this film is out there right now is proof positive of that, and I want more.
Yes. I love that face he made. First off, props to Mindy for actually putting it into practice. Because we can all get on Twitter and tell everybody how we feel, and it's like yelling into a pillow. A righteous anger should lead to righteous action, and just like if someone who used to eat burgers with you said, I'm a vegan now, you'd much rather see them eat vegan food than remind you that they're vegan every time you see them. So we just have to live these things that we care about. We have to live them, and pretty soon people will go, these people I love are acting differently than I've acted, maybe I should look into that. So hopefully Hollywood is going to continue being a landmark for that type of behavior. I'll never work again, thank you.
I'm so sorry about that, you guys.
Let's take a couple questions from the audience, if you right here, you, nice and loud. Great question. Let me repeat that. So the question is, what is the difference between writing for your own shows and writing for yourself versus writing for other characters? Great.
That's a great question. I'm not sure that there is a big difference from when I'm writing for myself and writing for other characters. One thing I was very acutely aware of when writing a movie was that I only had one opportunity to nail all the characters. Sometimes in a show, you'll do something and you'll have, like at The Office, I would go one episode where Kelly had one line, and it was fine because you knew we had so many other episodes to do it. So the challenge in writing a movie is to really make sure that every character is good and had an arc. And I didn't want, all of the writers at the end to be villains. I wanted them to go on a journey as well. And at the end of it, you're like, oh, they're not just jerks. They just were, used to more privilege or whatever, and now they're allies. So that was difficult for me. But in terms of writing for the other characters, it's pretty much the same. About the writing in this movie, the real challenge was the fact that I was doing 4 different kinds of writing in it. I was doing dialogue writing, which I'm used to from my shows, but then I was writing stand-up comedy, which then I had to write stand-up comedy that was bad when she's doing badly, and then writing stand-up comedy that killed such that an audience went crazy. And then I also had to write monologue jokes for a talk show. So the research that went into doing that, there are people who work on these shows who their entire job is writing monologue jokes. So that is a really hard thing to try to pick up. So I just did a ton of research, and I had friends who work on shows help me on that. But that was actually kind of the bigger challenge.
Great question. Thank you very much. Okay, who else has a question? Yes, you. Nice and loud, please.
Have you ever considered becoming a late night host at some point?
Oh, have you ever considered becoming a late?
This is a great question. I would love to hear your guys' take on it because we all love late night shows. So I'd like to hear what would you guys think.
I think you should replace Jimmy Kimmel. I don't like him, I don't like his people, and I think it's time for a change, and that change starts here. Am I right, people? He's my friend. He's the best. Would I ever do it? Yeah. I think it's just it's a grind. It's a grind. It's like you wake up every day, but it seems like a lot of fun. What about you?
I think I would do it, but I would probably get fired for laughing at my own jokes. Like, this guy is really annoying. We made a huge mistake.
Probably can't make the landmark puns if you're doing that. So in watching so much late night talk shows, I have found it to be so challenging. I really have such respect for the people who do it. They're mostly men who do it, but you know, Samantha Bee and now Lily Singh is coming out, which will be really exciting. But it is Seth Meyers, who's in the movie, who did the tremendous favor of taking out time to come and be in the movie. It was so funny, I thought. But I think it takes a lot of work in being able to be good at a lot of different things, and it's incredibly tedious. And you know, it's not like you do a show and you do it for 8 years at the most, or 10 or something if it's like Cheers. But this is like being a monarch. When you have a late night talk show, you do it till you die. You do it for 40 years. It's supposed to be, and you have to give up a lot of other stuff. Those guys are all doing fine. I'm not feeling bad for them. But all this to say, I just think it's a very challenging job. So I personally don't think I would be good at it, and I probably would end up not liking it.
I just want to say really quick, I love the part in the script and in the movie where Emma has to talk to like the teenage vampire girl or whatever, because like that's so true that when you watch late night shows, sometimes Jimmy Fallon is sitting there just going, God, I love you, and it's like, dude, you have to have this amount of enthusiasm for like everybody you talk to, and there's no way they're that excited to meet everyone they talk to.
You must have that attention for the fourth lead on a new ABC sitcom, and you're like, that's amazing, what an anecdote, like it's a lot.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, so this is really, really important. So now that late night is in theaters in LA and New York, and it goes wide next weekend, you know, how do people spread the word on movies these days? They spread it through word of mouth. And what is word of mouth these days? It's social media. So I know you're on Facebook. I know you're on Facebook. So make sure you all go on your Facebook pages, tell all your friends, go on Twitter, tell your hundreds of thousands of followers, go on Instagram, post photos of this movie poster, go on MySpace. If you're still using MySpace, spread the word about late night, ladies and gentlemen, get everyone to see this movie.